Welcome to the inaugural edition of the Nichols College Athletics Podcast. We're taping this on Tuesday, September 24th. We're here with new Nichols College Director of Athletics, Eric Gobiel. Eric, you arrived on the Hill in the summer of 2011, and 8 years later, you're now the athletic director. So talk about kind of that rise and the different roles you've had and maybe how you got here in the first place.
Well, Pete, first of all, thanks for having me on this podcast. Really exciting stuff coming out of the Sports Information Department and just the Athletics Department in general. But to answer your question, arrived here on the Hill July 2011, and my first role here was as the head men's lacrosse coach. That first season was a tremendous year. I was hired by our former athletic director, Charlie Robert, and we had a solid season that first year. And shortly thereafter, one of our assistant athletic directors at the time was resigning from his position to take on another position and be closer to family. And I was fortunate enough to have Charlie ask me to come on board here full-time in an athletics administrative and coaching role. I worked under Charlie for about 4 years until her retirement from athletic administration to become a full-time faculty member. And that is when Chris Colvin came on board as our director of athletics and worked under Chris. Shortly after Chris's arrival, I was fortunate enough to be promoted to the associate director of athletics to work and cover really all the day-to-day aspects of the department, and really had a wonderful experience working under both of them over the last 8 years, which leads us up to this past spring, which was my final lacrosse season with the men's lacrosse program, and was fortunate enough to be asked to become the interim director of athletics this past May to start in June.
Some of those roles you mentioned, student life, you worked with them closely. I'm not sure if you dabbled in compliance at all, Charlie. I know we all wear many hats, but maybe just talk about a couple of the different roles specifically.
We do. In Division III athletics, I think that's pretty common. And Pete, as you know yourself, we as you said, dabble with many roles here on campus, wear many hats. I think I had my hand in a lot of different areas of our department, whether it be student life, meaning academics and behavior, or compliance and or transportation as the SAC advisor, the scheduling coordinator at one time, again, most certainly as a coach, and really just all the day-to-day operations, fundraising in many different capacities. So it was really a tremendous experience for me and an opportunity for me to receive a tremendous amount of growth under both Chris and Charlie and their guidance, and learned more than I could ever imagine of becoming an athletic administrator. I'm very fortunate enough and grateful for that.
And there was some thought once you assumed the title as the interim director that you might try to stay on as a lacrosse coach. Ultimately, you decided it was best for the program and in the interest of the department to step down. Just talk about that decision, maybe how difficult it was.
Sure, that decision, like anything, was a difficult one for me. This coming spring will be the first time in 17 years that I won't be on the lacrosse sideline, so it will give me a new perspective on things, a little bit different dynamic, but ultimately I felt it was best for not only the department but also the men's lacrosse program. They deserve to have a coach in place that could really spend all of their time and energy on bettering their program and the benefit of them as student athletes. And for me, in the role as the director of athletics, really allowed me to fully ingrain myself in our department, to try to evaluate everything to the best of my ability to see what we could adjust, adapt, change for the betterment of the entire institution.
Right away, you were thrust into the fire, had some coaching hires this summer, men's basketball, women's ice hockey. I feel like there might be one I'm missing there, but just talk about that role and just hiring some new coaches, especially for men's basketball, which is a program that's really put Nichols on the athletics map the last couple of years.
Sure. Anytime we do a coaching search, they are of the utmost importance. Our coaching staff is invaluable to this institution, and most certainly our department. They are the lifeline, most certainly for recruiting and our competitiveness, on the courts, ice fields, etc. And the first 90 days or so were a little chaotic. We had 3 coaching searches, or national coaching searches, that we held. And again, wonderful experience. Our staff did a tremendous job of vetting out candidates. We had 3 really strong candidate pools between men's basketball, women's ice hockey, and men's lacrosse. And ultimately, I'm thrilled with the candidates that accepted our positions. And I think each of those programs are slated to have extreme amounts of success in the future.
So we were talking about just the you've been here for 8 years, which is a year longer than I have. What kinds of changes have you seen at the college, both on the college itself, athletically? We just spoke about some of the coaches you've hired, and those were all part-time positions just a couple of years ago.
Sure, that's a great question, Pete. And, I think one of the biggest changes that we've had is the turnover from part-time to full-time coaches here in our athletic staff. When I first started about 9 years ago, we had mostly part-time positions here with our coaches, and I think it's a testament to President Engelmeyer, the President's Council, the Board of Trustees, because they really placed a value on athletics and having full-time employees here to recruit and make our programs as competitive as possible. The hiring process is always a unique one, and it's different for each sport and each program that we are hiring for. For example, we also just went through the hiring process for our newly named esports program, which we're extremely excited about, which we'll touch on in a little bit here. But that process has been one of the greatest changes and significant improvements in our department, is really seeing those part-time positions go to a full-time presence. And not that our coaches prior to these current coaches didn't do that beforehand, because they most certainly did, but the resources are now there. The backing and support has always been there, but even more so now, and it allows us to really give every resource available to us to better our student athlete experience and to help and assist our students really across the board, whether it's socially, academically, and most certainly from an athletic standpoint. The other significant change that we've seen here on campus is the physical plan, not just in our athletics department. We are about 3.5 years removed from a multi-million-dollar renovation to our facility, and out of that, we had a brand new weight room, a brand new fitness center, a new turf field, some new locker rooms, a new athletic training room. But even more so on campus, we are in the process of finishing a 3-year renovation to our dining hall and a new student center, and then also some new academic buildings, which allows our faculty and staff to better promote this institution as a whole, and again serve our students, because at the end of the day, that's what's most important.
Sure. In your 8 years, and again, we're taping this on Tuesday, September 24th with Nichols Athletic Director Eric Gobiel. Homecoming weekend is upon us, which we'll touch on in a minute. But during your 8 years, have you had a favorite athletic moment here, whether it's winning a championship, whether it's a lacrosse game personally, a student athlete success, anything jump out at you in particular?
Sure. I think, I've been really fortunate and really lucky that we've had a lot of success, whether it's, the success of our men's and women's tennis programs and the consecutive championships that they've won, or a few years ago with our men's ice hockey program and the national tournament run that they made, or even just most recently this past year, our men's basketball team going to the Elite Eight. Those are all tremendous experiences. I think they're great memories for not only myself, but our staff and students and the collective Nichols College as a whole. But I think at the end of the day, for me, the memories, or I guess the most exciting part to each year, and it sounds cliche, is when we see our student athletes walk across that stage at graduation. And it really is a culmination of all the hard work that they have done, both in the classroom and on the courts, fields, ice, again, etc. And that part for me is really something special, because those students are all going on to bigger and better things, and we can look at them and know that we had a small part in their success and in hopefully their future as well. And at the end of the day, I think, walking across that stage at graduation is a tremendous accomplishment, and we're extremely proud of all of them that do that.
It's a good transition to our Hall of Fame weekend and homecoming weekend here. We have 4 inductees going in who we both had the pleasure of watching compete in Anna Yakov of the women's tennis team, Justin DeLuca of the men's tennis team, Ryan Sheen of men's basketball, and Emily Wittes of the field hockey program. There's multiple CCC Player of the Year awards in there, multiple CCC championships in there. And Eric, at least in time here, I would argue this is one of the strongest classes we ever put in, if not definitely the youngest class, for sure.
Yeah, Pete, I would absolutely agree with that. I mean, the Hall of Fame class that is being inducted this coming Saturday is arguably one of the most decorated and most talented classes or classes of student athletes we've ever had. Between Ryan Sheen being one of 3 players with 2,000 or more points on our men's basketball program, if I remember correctly, a 3-time Player of the Year. Emily Wittes, our all-time leading scorer at our field hockey program, and then Anna and Justin with each 2 or 3 Player of the Year honors themselves with our tennis programs. I think, this class is arguably one of the most successful we've ever had in Nichols College history. And it was really something special. It is really something special for me to have been here and watched these individuals actively participate in their practices, in games, on their travel days, in the classroom, and then to see them receive this honor this Saturday is really a culmination of their efforts, and we most certainly are very thankful that they chose Nichols College, and we know that this Saturday they're very deserving that honor. In conjunction with the 4 Hall of Fame honorees, we also have 2 Hall of Honor teams going in, our 1964 baseball team and our 1969 Woodsman A team, both very deserving honors of those respective teams. They had extreme amounts of success in their own right, and I think Saturday is going to be a really special day, and we're really looking forward to it.
Homecoming festivities, of course, start on Friday afternoon. We've got a field hockey match against Gordon. Men's soccer plays Sal Regina Friday night. The the Hall of Fame induction, will be Saturday morning, followed by the football game against Salve at 1, and finally volleyball against Wentworth at 7. Eric, you couldn't have hoped for a better start to your tenure as an AD as far as the success of the fall team so far. The women's soccer team is off to a 7-1 start. Football is 2-1 for the second time in the last 3 years. Men's soccer has 5 wins already. The cross-country program has won a meet at Endicott. The golf team last week took home the CCC qualifier. I mean, really just left and right, it seems like there's a ton of good success stories going on at Nichols.
There is. It's a really an exciting time to be part of our Bison family and the herd, if you will. Our fall teams have been off to a tremendous start, and like anything, they at some point this season will face their challenges, and as long as they can be consistent throughout their play and their efforts, they're gonna be successful come the end of the year, which is great. This weekend's a really good test for us. We have some conference play happening, so our sights are set on the next games up for each team. And, I think there's a lot of positives to build off of, and we're really looking forward to not only our fall teams this year, but also winter and most certainly the spring when that time comes around. But we are very excited about the success that we've had thus far, and we're hoping it continues all the way through.
One of the things that will come with the end of September is the conclusion of the first annual Athletics Bison Blitz. In years past, this has been a tremendous fundraiser for the college, and this is the first time we've had one more geared towards athletics. So Eric, would you speak to that real quick and just how we've done so far?
Absolutely. Again, this is something that we're really excited about, and our athletics only blitz really derived from our college blitz each March the last handful of years with a very generous alumni, Mr. John McClutchy, who was very generous in terms of his match and donations to the college each March. And the success of that blitz, at least in terms of the athletics department each March, really allowed us to branch out and have an athletics only Bison Blitz, which is we are currently in right now and leading up to the last week here. Because of the success that we have had in that blitz, we have also had another very generous alum from the 1986 class, Mr. Dave Bedard, and he very generously has donated to match the first $40,000 raised in the month of September, specifically towards Nichols College athletics. So again, that most certainly wouldn't be possible if we didn't have generous alumni support, family, friends, really just everybody involved in Nichols athletics, and we are very, very excited about the future of this blitz. Hopefully, we will continue to do this every September for the foreseeable future, and these donations really assist our programs in a variety of different ways, whether they're to assist our lacrosse teams to take a trip down south, or baseball to South Carolina, softball to Orlando, or our tennis teams to go to Puerto Rico in the future. Our men's soccer team did some fundraising with some of the money that they had raised from the Blitz in March to take a European soccer trip to travel to Europe, to Ireland and London, and really a tremendous experience for those student athletes. And even last winter, our men's ice hockey team took a week-long trip during the week of Thanksgiving to Wisconsin and got to play some really high-caliber teams and opponents out there to better their experience and really better our competition. So, this support goes an extremely long way for us, and we are very, very grateful for all of our supporters, both from the donor standpoint, from the support from our families, and the efforts from our students in gauging the interest in athletics.
Once again, we want to thank Athletic Director Eric Gobiel for joining us today. Lastly, Eric, what excites you about this new position? What gets you excited about coming to work every day?
Yeah, I consider myself very grateful, Pete. Every day I get to come to work and work with a tremendous group of staff and coaches. and support staff here, whether it's our sports information staff, our athletic training, our office manager, and of course all of our coaches. But not only do I get to work with amazing individuals in our athletics department, we have tremendous support from this institution, whether it's in the academics, career services. Our academic advising team is outstanding, and to really work with those individuals for the same goal, which is student athlete success, or I should say student success. I consider myself very, very fortunate enough to have the opportunity to work alongside these people to better our student experience over the course of their time with us here at Nichols.
Great. Once again, we want to thank, I was going to say Coach Eric Gobiel, but now Director of Athletics Eric Gobiel for joining us. Coming up shortly, we'll have the second part of our inaugural podcast, which is a roundtable discussion of all the fall teams going on. And again, if you need anything in regards to Nichols Athletics, all of our social media accounts are NC Bison. Our website, again, nicholsathletics.com. And our YouTube page is NC Bison Athletics. So again, Eric Gobiel, thanks for joining us on the inaugural Nichols College Athletics podcast.
Pete, thanks for having me.
Coming up next is part 2 of the Nichols College Athletics podcast. Hope you enjoy. Welcome to the inaugural Nichols College Athletics podcast. Homecoming weekend is upon us. We're taping this on Tuesday, September 24th. We've got a bunch of home games today. As we head into homecoming weekend, a slew of action. We've got the field hockey team hosting Gordon on Friday. The men's soccer team takes on Salve Regina Friday night at 7 on the turf. The next morning, we've got the women's soccer team hosting the Seahawks at 11. The football team will take on Salve Regina as well at 1 o'clock. And homecoming festivities are capped off with the women's volleyball team taking on Wentworth at 7 o'clock. Women's volleyball has only had one home match this year, so it'll be their first time home in about a month. We're here with a roundtable panel of experts from Nichols College. We're going to discuss how each team started out the season, and then we'll lead into a little bit about homecoming this weekend. So with us, first of all, Tim Bennett, who is the head athletic trainer.
Hey, Pete. How are you?
Great, Tim. How are you?
Good, thank you. Thanks for having me.
It's also Tim's birthday today. He didn't want us to shout it out, but we wanted to make sure Tim got his recognition today, so happy birthday.
Thank you. Much appreciated.
Bob Donahue is the strength and conditioning coach.
How's it going? Thanks for having me.
David Egan, who is a junior at Nichols.
Senior.
He is a senior. I knew I was going to get that wrong. Sport management major. He does a lot of things for the athletic department, webcasting, public address announcing. He works on a new TV show that the Sport Management Club has started, so we want to have David with us. And lastly, Tyler Gaudet, who is a graduate of Nichols, who is in his second year in the Sports Information Office.
So, thanks for having me.
Gentlemen, let's start out by talking about the football team. Homecoming seems to be based around the football game. The Bison so far 2-1 this year. It's their second time in 3 years. They've opened up with 2 wins, coming off a big victory at Ann Maria this weekend, 37-20. Senior Michael Spaldings took home Defensive Player of the Week honors. So the Bison heading into a Salve Regina matchup. They've been one of the top teams in the conference the last couple of years. They've given the Bison some trouble. Tim, what have you seen so far from the team this year on the field?
Yeah, I think the football team's gotten off to a great start. Obviously, a heartbreaker there. Home opener versus Coast Guard Academy. We missed the extra point in overtime, and that was a tough one. But we battled with a very good team in Coast Guard, and Coast Guard was actually receiving regional votes this week for top 10 in the region. So it proves that we are a good team and we're ready to rock. But Salve is going to be a tough opponent for us for sure. I was talking to the coaches, watching a little bit of film on the Salve Regina Seahawks, and they are definitely a big, strong team and proven that, they are going to be one of, the top teams in the conference again this year. So tough matchup on homecoming for the Bison, but hopefully the guys are ready for it.
Seahawks come in 1-2. They took losses early on, but to Norwich and to Montclair State, 2 of the stronger teams in the Northeast. But one of the biggest improvements we've seen so far from the Bison is on the offensive and defensive line. You mentioned the Coast Guard game. A week ago, we lost in overtime. Last season, we played them, and it seemed like we wore down in the second half. Again, when you're playing against Coast Guard, these are men. These are men that are trained to go into battle, hopefully not at some point. But, again, these are big, strong guys. They overpowered us in the second half. This year, I don't think that was the case, Bob. Can you talk about just the offseason, the strength and conditioning that's going on with the team to help them prepare for these kinds of games?
Yeah, we actually had a great offseason. We had 50, 60 guys in the weight room every day. We worked out four days a week, and we got after it. And the guys trusted in my program, and we got a lot stronger. And just kind of, I think the big deal was coming in as a team every day is the big part. I mean, the getting stronger is a bonus too, but them coming together as a team, was a really big factor in this offseason. They struggled together, and now they're doing very well together, so it's good to see.
And it's a large squad this year. It's the biggest we've had in a number of years. So over 100 kids on the team, where 3-4 years ago we were in the 70s, I believe, at one point. So we've definitely done a better job recruiting, keeping these kids here, and brought in some better talent for sure. David, as a student, is there a vibe on campus about the football team? Are people excited? Are they looking forward to going to the game? Or is anybody talking about the team? Just thoughts on that.
I think from like a student's perspective, everybody gets excited for football games, especially the first home game against Coast Guard. Everybody was excited. They wanted football, and even football season as a whole is coming back. So Friday night under the lights, it was kind of good to see everybody come back. Based off the attendance, a lot of people did show up to support their Bison. And I think with homecoming coming up, I think a lot of people are going to be excited. It's usually a 1 o'clock game here at home. They're all ready to go. And I think it's going to be a special day on Saturday.
Tyler, I think one of the best things we've seen with the football team this year, Hunter Ferreira emerged last year as a freshman as a star wide receiver. He earned all conference honors. Tony Marignoli, who his freshman year came in, broke a bunch of records, was an all-conference performer, was shifted to quarterback his sophomore year. Last year kind of juggled around, wasn't quite comfortable. And this year he seems like he's back, he's healthy, and he's being effective for the Bison.
Yeah, Tony had a great, first year, a couple years ago when he put up all those record numbers for us and was a great wide receiver. And then, unfortunately, things happened and he had to take over at the QB position, which is not ideal, especially when you're taking your best offensive weapon and putting him at the quarterback position. But I think this year, along with Hunter Ferreira coming in, Hunter is just... from what I've seen, between him playing football and with lacrosse, that man is just a freak athlete. He can do a lot on the field, and I think him alongside with Tony, I think Tony's really finding his ground again after coming off of a disappointing year being quarterback and then coming back and not having the greatest year at wide receiver. But I think he's finally found his feet again, and him and Hunter are a dual threat for the Bison that a lot of people should not take lightly.
There's a lot of offensive weapons on this team. Joshua Pierre-Charles, who again has broken some records, single-game rushing record over the years. He's back leading the rushing. And Michael Pina, who, despite his numbers, he's in the negative as far as rushing yards go. He's a threat at both sides, and he's not the most physically imposing person when you see him on campus, but he can really throw the ball. He's got some big targets out there, and he can scamper out of the pocket if he needs to.
Yeah, I think one thing about Mike is he is that dual threat. He has the ability, especially you're talking about the offensive line getting stronger. With this offense this year, the Bison fans just have to be ready for an attack at any given time. Any of the weapons, whether it's Jake Wood, Tony Marignoli, Hunter Ferreira, JPC out of the backfield, we got a lot of guys. And actually, something we've seen this year is already a couple of defensive touchdowns. Guys like Jared Abruzzi and Mike Spaldings, even going back to the Dean game, 5 turnovers in that second half. It's definitely imposing when you have a good defense.
And I was just going to talk about the defense. You've got a veteran squad here. You mentioned Mike Spaldings, C.J. Lawrence, DeJounte Starks is a senior who didn't play much of last year. Dylan Kehoe is a sophomore coming back. So this is a strong defense. Bob, what have you seen from your side?
The defense has been really showing up, which is good. We know we have those offensive weapons, and it's good to see the defense stepping up. Back to Mike Pina, he's a tough kid. I mean, he doesn't look like he's a big, strong kid, but he's one of the heaviest squatters on our team. So it just goes to show you that's why he can get hit time after time after time and get right back up. So I think that's a big difference in that, and that makes a difference in the game, And the defense showing up is definitely a bonus too. So
I would have to say that the defense too, like just going back to that Coast Guard game, that second half, that defense was really second to none for the Bison. They held them to, I think Coast Guard didn't score any points in the second half until overtime.
Scoreless second half.
Exactly. So they really kept their team in it and gave the offense something to work with. They were just waiting on the offense, and the offense finally made their move and was able to force overtime. But it was a fantastic showing, especially in the second half against Coast Guard, against a big, strong team like that.
I think the defense can also help carry this team, and like you said, in tough situations, they didn't allow a point to Coast Guard in the second half, and they were just waiting. And I think if the offense can click at the right time, I think this defense can really be a big part of this team moving forward.
And this was a fourth quarter comeback for the Bison. We're speaking of against Coast Guard. They were down late. Michael Pina led him down the field for the tying drive. And this is Mike's second year at Nichols. He transferred in from Mount Ida. So you have to think he's more comfortable with all of his surroundings, with his teammates, his classes, his roommates, everything like that. So that has to be a big thing for Mike as well, leading the team. So again, the Bison host Savile Regina Saturday at 1 o'clock. We're going to move on to our next team, the women's soccer team. Off to their best start since 2010. They are 7-1. They're just hitting conference play. They opened up against Curry this weekend, CCC play. Came away with a 1-0 win despite being outshot almost 2-1.
Yeah, the Bison are I mean, they're doing really good, honestly. The 7-1 start, they've played a lot of non-conference games, and then to get that 1-0 win at Curry to start conference play is huge momentum for them, especially to keep the winning streak alive. And Olivia Marcantonio has just been absolutely stunning in net all season. She's coming off her second CCC Defensive Player of the Week award this week after putting up a fantastic showing, especially against Curry. The Bison, like you just said, they got outscored basically 2-1, but it was Olivia's. It was because of Olivia why they won that game. Putting up 15 saves, a season high for her. So I think the Bison are rolling, and they got the right momentum at the right time.
And Olivia again took over for Brooke Downey, who was a 3-year, possibly a 4-year starter here. My memory's going at this point. But she led the conference in saves last year. So there was a big hole and a big question in net going into camp this year. But Olivia's really answered that. Another person who's been huge for the women's soccer team, Megan Dunn. She's a graduate student. She leads the team with 6 goals. And Nia Samboy, who transferred in from St. Michael's, has come in. And she's put up 5 points through the first 8 matches as well. Bob, have you seen anything differently from the women's soccer team than in previous years, whether it's attitude, whether it's strength in the weight room, anything that's kind of led to this rebirth, I guess, of the women's soccer program?
Well, we had a great offseason. Coach Karen did a good job instilling to the team that the weight room is important, so they came in fired up. We had a great offseason. We got a lot stronger. And then they came into preseason with no signs of being out of shape, so they're ready to go. So we got after it in the preseason. And then, they're a little bit more bought in and a little bit more focused, and we have a good group of freshmen, stud athletes, and coupled with great leadership up top is a good combination that I see from this team.
And Tim, you've been here just as long as I have. What have you seen from this program, attitude-wise, personnel-wise, just that's led to the confidence for this team right now?
Yeah, I was actually working, a part of the women's soccer team for 2 years. And I was actually here when Megan Dunn was a freshman and won CCC Rookie of the Year, and then unfortunately decided to step away from the program. She's a local girl. She lives here in town in Dudley, and she stepped away for a couple of years. Coach Karen Gernon, hats off to her for turning this program around, because they are definitely on the up and up. And I think that the camaraderie, the chemistry, you see a lot of team bonding going on in the athletic training room, and these girls genuinely enjoy being teammates with each other, and that's not always the case in all the sports teams, but this team genuinely likes each other, and they're willing to go and play for each other, and I think they know they have a chance at any given game. Given the results of the CCC women's soccer scores from this past weekend, opening weekend, your first real look at conference play, I think this team really believes that they have a fighting chance in every game. So I think that's definitely important, as a little bit of the team chemistry.
I just also want to mention from a student standpoint, we talk about, in the fall, we always talk about, what's the tennis team going to do? What's the football team going to do this year? I think you can add women's soccer to that list now, because I think they want to prove themselves as being being the top soccer team all around. And just like this past weekend with Curry, they proved it with a 1-0 victory. They want to prove themselves, and they want to be heard. They talk about having rough records over the past couple of years. 7-1 with their best start since 2010. I think they want to come back and make sure that they are known as being a top team.
Once upon a time, this women's soccer program, I believe, was the first team at Nichols to enter the NCAA tournament. So that was under actually men's head coach Chris Traina, which leads us into the men's soccer team. But to wrap up women's soccer again, they're hosting Savary Regina Saturday morning at 11 a.m. on homecoming, right before the football game. Men's soccer team is back in action this afternoon. They're going to take on Becker at 3:30. And then Friday night under the lights, they're going to host the Savary Regina Seahawks. They seem to be the common opponent this weekend on homecoming. Bison are off to a 5-2-1 start. They've won their last 3 matches. Tyler, what have you seen out of the men's soccer team so far this year?
Yeah, the soccer team, they're off to, once again, another good start. I know, last year, they ended the season not on the note that he wanted to, but they did play one playoff game last year, and they put up a great fight against the Salve team. So to play Salve right now, this weekend, I guess, but Becker tonight. But the Bison team in general, they're hot right now. They won 3 in a row. You would call that 4 in a row, but they did have a double overtime tie against Mass Maritime, but I feel like their defense is been second to none, just like the women's team. The women's team has 5 shutouts. The men's team has 3, including 2 in their last 2 games. Senior Juan Carlos de la Cruz has stepped up, and he has played fantastic for the Bison, including against, just all season. Carlos de la Cruz has played fantastic. They had a 2-0 loss early in the season at Amherst, but that was a nationally ranked Amherst team, and it would have been a lot bigger of a deficit for the Bison if it wasn't for Juan. He made some amazing saves in that game and really put the team on his back, and I feel like that's what he's been doing all season. But it seems like the last couple of games, the offense is starting to come around too, as they've been scoring a little bit more goals, coming into the conference play. And just like the women's team, the men's team is starting to click at the right time. So,
I also want to mention, they have the similar situation as the women's soccer team. Brooke Downey graduated. Olivia stepped up. Patrick Papora was the goalie last year, and he graduated. And Juan has definitely stepped up to being the starting goalie, and I think that's bringing in confidence to him. And I think he's going to continue to improve as the season progresses.
Yeah, and I mean, hats off to Coach Chris Trena recruiting a pretty young group of guys, and then bringing Demir Pesa, the Swiss Army knife of the athletics department, on board.
That's a good way to put it.
On board to help him coach, and then Alex Surprise as well, a young kid who's here as a graduate assistant position. They really have all aspects of coaching, and like you said, Tyler, build from the back. Both soccer programs building from their goalie out. Adding this young talent. If you put some good coaches in the mix, you're hoping that you're going to see progress amongst these teams.
We've had some good freshmen come into the men's soccer program as well. Nicholas Gagne had 2 goals the other day, winning over Anna Maria. Nicholas Padilla's come in and played well. John Fallon's played well for the Bison. But really, we can trace this all the way back to August, when preseason they took a trip over to London. They played a couple of friendlies over there. They went to a couple of Premier League matches. And a trip like that will really just bring the team together, spending all that time with each other, getting to know each other, getting the freshmen acclimated. And you can see it's translated so far coming back to campus this year.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So I have the men's soccer team on Mondays and Thursdays at 7 a.m., which is not ideal for them. They come back from a home game or a away game. They come in at 7 a.m. and they're a little tired, but I kind of meet them halfway, and I give them some quick 15-20 minute upper body workout, and they just kind of rally up as a team, and they get after it for literally 20 minutes, and then they're out. So, and it's good to see that at first they're tired as a team, and then they're excited and fired up and working hard as a team. So it's either one or the other, but at least they do it together.
Right, it's definitely translating to wins, and that's what it's all about. Winning cures everything. So again, 5-2-1 men's soccer team back in action this afternoon against Becker, and then they'll host Salve Regina Friday night at 7. On to the field hockey program led by alumni Jen Townsend. The field hockey team will host Gordon. They'll kind of kick off the homecoming festivities with the first game. They'll play Friday afternoon at 4 o'clock against Gordon. They're in action today against Endicott, who is nationally ranked recently. Bison, a little bit of a skid recently. They've lost 3 in a row. Right before that, a 3-game winning streak. And again, they familiar face for Bison fans, Liz Mckinnon, who's also on the women's lacrosse team, leads the team in scoring in both goals and points, 5 goals, 12 points. And freshman Mackenzie Duran's come in, been a nice surprise. She's been a rookie of the week in the conference so far, and she's got 10 points through the first 7 games as well.
Yeah, I think with the field hockey program, I was talking to Coach Townsend the other day, and they're really trying to take a step in the right direction. Building the entire team, and Brooke Misbach in goal this year. It hasn't been her best numbers comparatively, statistics, but I know she's working hard. She's in there all the time. She's in the weight room. She's trying to get better. So just like you were talking about the soccer programs building from the back, the field hockey program's looking to build from the back and build their defense, because up front, again, they do have the weapons in McKinnon and Duran. Dana Edwards coming back from a year off as well. She's got 6 points in 7 games. So there's definitely options for the Bison to score up front. So.
Tyler, you scored the most recent game against Becker. What did you see? Was that Roger Williams on Saturday? Which one did you?
I was at the Becker one. Yeah,
the Becker game, and that was a tough loss. That was one I'm sure Coach Townsend would like to have back. Roger Williams, again, was another tough loss. I believe they had a lead at one point in that contest and slipped away in the second half. UNE is a perennial powerhouse in the conference. Went up to Biddeford this past weekend and kind of took it on the chin a little bit, so the Bison are going to try to bounce back this weekend. Again, 2 home matches. Endicott Tuesday, which is today, of course, and Gordon on Friday afternoon. The cross-country team, coming off 2 weeks ago, well, 3 weeks ago, I guess at this point now, first place finish up at Endicott. Joe Santiazi, who's a senior, he's on the track and field team as well. The senior scholar athlete of the year last year in the conference. He won the event, finished the 8K course in 28:29, and they've got a steady group of upperclassmen leading them. Chris Kimball, Kevin Radovich, Richard March. These are all familiar names to Bison fans. The women's program still looking to build up a little bit. Elise Pond has been one of their better runners this year. Mackenzie Marin's a junior, and she's been with the program for 3 years now. So they're in action this weekend. They're at the Tri-State Invitational in Rhode Island. Bob, the cross-country program, what kind of work and experience do you have with them in the weight room, whether it's weights, whether it's conditioning, anything like that?
Yeah, so we go 2 days a week, Mondays and Thursdays, and Monday we lift. Like, we do a lot of circuit-style work, kind of meet them halfway, get them to feel like we're doing cross-country specific work, which we are, but we're kind of doing that on Mondays, and then we go like a roll out and stretch out on Thursdays to get ready for the weekend. And they're a great group. They come in on time every day. They come in from their very long run, longer than I'd ever run, and they come in, they get after it, and they listen to what I say, and they get work done, and it obviously shows that they work hard at whatever they do because they're doing very well. So it's a good group to work with.
And I just have to say, this is going on my, I guess you call it my 6th year on the Hill over here at Nichols College. 4 years as an undergrad, now my 2nd year as a graduate student. But from the place that I've seen, this program come from, since my freshman year, they've definitely improved. Katie Bolton does a great job of trying to bring in kids that, want to make this program better. And it seems like, every meet that they go to, we're seeing better and better times. We're seeing them finish higher in the standings. So I feel like hats off to Katie. She does a fantastic job with getting them in here and trying to really build the cross country program as well as the track program here.
Sure. Katie Bolton, of course, no stranger to being a student athlete. She was at Providence College, where that program has been a national contender for championships for years. So she's trying to bring that success to Nichols. Next, we're going to move on to the golf program. This is one of the, I don't want to say it's the biggest surprise of the fall so far, but a pleasant surprise. The Bison went into the CCC qualifier last week. This is a position the last couple of years. We've been a 3rd, 4th place team, qualified for the championship, but just can't seem to put 5 great rounds of golf together from 5 individual student athletes. And that happened last week, and the Bison ended up winning. And we are now going to host the CCC Championship in April. Tim over here is our golf aficionado, so we're going to turn this over to Tim and let him just talk about the team a little bit.
Yeah, so I was talking with Coach Howard last week. Obviously, the guy's super excited to win the CCC qualifier. We've got 7 teams in the CCC qualifier. The top 4 will all make it into the CCC Championship, and by winning that event as a team, Nichols College has the right to host that event in the spring. So I believe that's the weekend of April 25th. It's a 2-day event, 36-hole score. So the golf program, I know going into this event, Coach Howard had a difficult decision in setting his lineup. Some guys that have been there for the past couple of years. There's a couple new faces in the mix. Colby Mitchell, one of the rookies of the week for the CCC, stepped up big at the number 5 spot with the graduation of Colton Hudson. And the other top 4 guys were kind of the same. But then out of nowhere, we get an appearance from John Marlborough, a kid out of Worcester, Mass., who was at QCC for a while, transferred into Nichols, and turns out he's one heck of a golfer and a lefty like myself. So Coach Howard had a difficult decision, put him in the mix, and I think he ended up coming in 2nd place, only behind Jake Willis, who actually won the event. Went out, shot a 72. I believe he was actually 3 under through his first 6 holes. So he got off to a very hot start and then battled back and actually won the event with a 74. So hats off to Jake. I think there's a lot of excitement with the golf program, and moving forward into the spring, I'm definitely interested to see what this team can bring.
This is the head coach, and Tim Howard, who he's part-time here, and sometimes with part-time head coaches, it's sometimes difficult to recruit. You're taking care of your full-time job. You're getting over here to practice as quick as you can, trying to make sure the student-athletes are having good experience. And he's done a really good job. He's found some newcomers this year to come in and really made an impact on the program.
And one interesting thing this weekend, too, the Bison are on the road down to Bethpage, where it was the host of, I think the recent PGA down there. An interesting tournament that'll be hosted down there, and the Bison on the road getting an opportunity to play one of those courses. It'll be interesting to see the numbers that come back from that, especially heading into the spring. For an opportunity to host, close to home, a home course advantage for the golf team is definitely something you look for, and hopefully the opportunity to get a bid into the NCAAs and travel down south to some warm weather, that's pretty much every golfer's dream.
Yeah, I'd have to say when you say like it's a pleasant surprise to have the golf team, win the qualifier. But for me personally, I feel like it was less of a surprise because we ended last year on such a high note. We didn't host the championship last year, but we came in tied for second.
Yeah, we were right in it all the way down the stretch.
Exactly.
All the way down the stretch, everyone was checking scorecards all the way into the house because it was one swing, it was one stroke, and maybe the golf team doesn't get as much publicity as they'd like, but I know you went out to the event last week, Tyler, and just being able to be out there and kind of see the guys in action and realize that hey, this is a collegiate event going on, and there are some good athletes out here.
Yeah, no, they really are. Being out there and just seeing, like what these athletes do to prepare for the match is just like any other sport. Here at Nichols, you go to football, you see them, getting ready, or any other sport, they got their headphones on, they're ready to go, they're trying to zone in, and the golf team is not any different than that.
Yeah.
It's,
Wake up, get breakfast, head to the course, hit bucket of balls on the range, do some chipping, some putting. So, it doesn't get as much publicity maybe as it should, but it's kind of behind the scenes operation, and I'll tell you what, the Nichols College golf team is going to be a good one this year.
And Tim Bennett does have a very small part in that. I believe you served as the head coach a couple years ago for the conference meet.
Yeah, rest in peace, Coach Al Kubicki. When he stepped away from the program, I was able to take over this team while Coach Howard, we were trying to integrate Coach Howard. And, being a golf guy that I am, I'm always in contact with Coach Howard. He's a part-time coach, so anytime I can help out these guys on campus or be a resource for them, I'm definitely looking to help out where I can.
Yeah. We've talked about a lot of successful starts so far for the Bison, the women's soccer program, the golf program, the cross-country program. And now we're going to move on to the volleyball program, which a fourth-year program. They've already matched the record for wins, which is 6. They've started out with a rough schedule. They started the season at home with a tri-match back in August. They've been on the road for the last 8 matches, but they bring a 6-4 mark back home. They're going to host a few matches. They've got Endicott tonight, who will get another nationally ranked program. Dean is on Thursday night, and then they cap off homecoming with Wentworth on Saturday. So 3 straight home matches for the Bison. David, is it good to have the Bison home at this point? What are you looking forward to seeing?
I think it is because a lot of people haven't been able to notice the women's volleyball team this year. And based off me, who's worked a lot last year for volleyball and then this year as well, I've seen there's a bit of a difference between this team from previous years to this year. I think the freshman class of last year, they really stood out, I guess is the best way to put it, as far as making their names noticed on the team as starters. And then you look at the leaders of the team so far, the seniors, Megan Gardner, Lexus Andrews, and even graduate Zoe Chevrette. They've really helped this team, help be the leaders of this team. But you also got to branch out to Jaylin Fegan, who's a sophomore now. She was a freshman last year and was able to get the starting position on this volleyball team. And I think there's a lot of, not expectations, but there's always room for improvement. And I think this team has really improved so far from last year to this year.
One of the keys to the Bison's success so far this year has been being able to play people at their natural positions. Megan Gardner, we mentioned Demir Pesa being a Swiss Army knife for the department. Megan Gardner has played every position on the court for John Post and before that Peter Menasia. She's finally back at her natural outside position now. Jaylene Fegan played the outside last year. She's more fit to be a libero. She's come in, solidified the libero position. And the key for any successful volleyball program is to have a good passer. They lost their passer last season, Rachel Valou. I believe I'm saying that right. If I'm not, I apologize, Rachel. But she's just recently come back. And really just now people are in place for John Post to really make this team go. He's got some key freshmen. Madison Prody's leading the team in kills. Chandra Saunders is in. She's also another outside hitter who's played well. And Allison Tuxbury has been another key addition. So really 3 freshmen on the court pretty regularly for Coach John Post, and you can see the results.
Yeah, I think, again, not to get off on every single coach, but I think John Post has done a good job getting volleyball players in here. And obviously he coaches both the men's and women's side of the players, and recruiting is something he has to be good at with a lot of ties to the area. And with those ties, I think you end up with good players like this that find a home here at Nichols College.
Bob, what have you seen from your side of things, just the improvement from last year, both on the court and off in the weight room especially?
Yeah, they've been doing great with me. They've been working hard, kind of doing everything I asked from them. We've been working on kind of pretty much keeping them healthy. A lot of arm care work, and we do a lot of shoulder work and a lot of like lower back stuff. So pretty much the goal is to keep them healthy and keep the athletes on the court.
Sure.
And they've been doing really well and taking it seriously, coming and rolling out, getting that stuff done. So they've been great.
And we've talked about a lot of freshmen on these teams coming in and making an impact. What have you seen as far as the quality of the freshman student that have come in over the last 2-3 years? How much of a difference have you seen? Just bigger, stronger, faster, ready to work, just more skilled, honestly.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So last year was my first year, and I could tell who lifted weights and who wasn't. Like the freshmen, obviously, the difference between the freshman class last year and this year, you can tell they've been in a weight room before, and it's kind of a breath of fresh air because you don't have to go to block zero with every single other freshman athlete. So I can kind of start them a little bit closer to the upperclassmen, So that's been good, and it's good that the high school strength and conditioning has kind of grown a little bit in the past couple of years. So
sure.
That's good to see.
So the volleyball team, again, 3 home matches this week. Starts tonight against Endicott and then Dean, and they cap off homecoming with Wentworth. The last team we're going to talk about, and it just seems like they do nothing but win, is the women's tennis program. Tyler, 33 straight conference wins. They've won 3 straight conference championships, shooting for number 4, and coming off a tournament at the International Tennis Hall of Fame in Newport. Grass court doubles, they won all 3 flights. Amy Setawongs and Izzy won Flight A. Megan Nathanson and Juliana Herrera won Flight B. And Lindsay Kaplan and Cara Stankiewicz won Flight C. So Tyler, just again, a machine that keeps rolling on.
Yeah, this is one of those teams, it's the men's and women's tennis teams here, are very, very successful. But, what's impressive is like you said, the 33 straight CCC match wins. That's just, it's insane, undefeated the last 2 seasons. But that's, thanks to very, very skilled athletes on this team. They have, their top 2, or some of their top 2, Izzy Lenardi and Amy Setawongs, they're both number 2 in the program in some stats. I'm like, Lenardi is number 2 in all time in program for doubles wins, and Amy is number 2 all time for singles wins. So it's no surprise that they keep rolling, but it's impressive that they can just keep doing this over the course of a long time.
Yeah, I had the opportunity to go out last week and watch the tennis team in action versus Wentworth. I believe that was last Wednesday, and I'll be heading out again today to watch them take on Salve. But one thing that really impressed me is just the depth of Coach Brower's lineup. The ability to roll out someone, if someone needs to rest because someone's a little bit injured or they're a little bit sore and, they want to protect their athletes for those matches. There's a high volume of matches on the women's tennis schedule this year, and a lot of tennis to be played. So just the ability to roll out so some depth lineup and earn those points. And again, the CCC wins is just an impressive number. So hoping to grow that number by 1 today against Salve.
And just speaking of the tennis program, tying in with Hall of Fame weekend, we have 4 inductees this year. It's one of the strongest classes we've ever had, and also one of the youngest we've ever had. And I'm going to alienate probably half the people in this room. But Tim, you were here for all of these inductees, and 2 of them tennis players, Justin DeLuca and Anna Jacque for the women's team, who combined have 5 or 6 players of the year. I think 5 CC championships off the top of my head, along with Ryan Sheen from men's basketball and Emily Widdison from the field hockey program. Do you have any memories of any of these student athletes that jump out at you right away, Tim?
Yeah, basically those 2, Justin and Anna, were part of the tennis program when I first got to Nichols 8 years ago, and I was immediately impressed by the talent level of the tennis program here and how competitive they were, and then just 2 of the best right there. So I think if you look on the men's side comparatively now, you've got a guy like Guilherme Barbosa, and you've got an athlete like Amy Setawong who is, ready to take that next step. You have that number 1, and then you build depth from there. And, the tennis programs have continually, year after year, been able to grow. And, it's nice on a nice afternoon, go outside, watch a tennis match right there, and it's good competitive tennis. The athletes are really doing a good job this year.
I think while those two tennis student athletes we spoke of were really linchpins in the success of those programs, Sheen maybe gets forgotten with the men's basketball program. They've won 3 straight conference championships, and people love to talk about Marcos Echeverria and Deontay Bruton and the fantastic players they've become. Ryan Sheen was really the first student athlete on that men's program that put us on the map. They came out of nowhere. That's, I guess, 6 years ago now.
6 years ago, Ryan Sheen was about to graduate, and Nichols Nation kind of wondered, okay, what's next? And I believe it was the very next year, we've got a young man that walks in the gym, isn't supposed to start the first game due to injury, starts the first game and goes out, and I believe goes for 31 points or something like that on opening night in Marcos Echeverria. So the recent, Nichols Nation's fans often forget about Ryan, but being here, Ryan was the guy, and Ryan, until recently, held the Nichols College points record, I believe, until Marcos broke that record. So hopefully, continue with things for them. But Ryan Sheen, definitely a good athlete.
Yeah, Ryan put the Bison in their first ever CCC championship back in 13-14. One of the most disappointing, if I'm being candid and honest, one of the most disappointing losses I've had to deal with as a employee of the department. 17-point halftime lead against Gordon, and Nichols fans hate to hear it. But I remember Ryan hitting a pull-up jumper in the second half. I think it put us up 17, and I looked at my student workers and said, we're going to the NCAA tournament. And after that, we had some foul issues, and we didn't end up winning. And Ryan, I remember after that defeat, was very gracious. He did interviews on the court for much longer than he needed to. And he's really somebody who helped put this program up. The next year was when Marcos came in. Again, we lost that his freshman year at Endicott, but Ryan really put the program on the map. So he's going to be one of 4 that goes in this weekend, along with the 64 baseball team and the 1969 Woodsman team. So we've covered all the fall teams so far. Jim, and you have any other comments you want to throw in here? David?
I think for me, being in my senior year of here at Nichols, I think this has been the most talked about fall for sports-wise in a while. We've seen these teams. We obviously hear about the tennis team, and then football. So obviously it's football season. I think more teams are starting to make a name for themselves in the fall, and I think only good things are going to be coming their way. I just think there's too many sports here now that are starting to get good.
Sure. And Tim, we can elaborate. I mean, the last couple of years, the men's soccer team has had their success, the women's tennis team, but we've had some other programs struggle the last couple of years. So this seems to be, we've had a theme throughout this podcast, really, of just each team really improving and doing well early on.
Getting wins and building chemistry is one of the best things that can happen for, sports teams here at Nichols College. And the opportunity to do that, through a lot of competition, I think is done well for all the sports teams, and hopefully it continues on, all the way through the fall into the winter, because, it must make your job for sure a fun job, Pete, because obviously you get a lot of statistics and a lot of wins and writing good stories and getting good media coverage. It's great for the college. So
it's a lot more fun to write about wins and losses. I know we can all agree on that one. We want to thank everybody for listening to the inaugural Nichols College Athletics podcast. We've drummed up a couple of names. We haven't settled on it yet. Hopefully by the next installment of this, we'll have that settled. Again, fans, we encourage you to follow all our social media sites. We are NC Bison on Instagram, on Twitter, on Facebook. We have a YouTube channel, which is NC Bison Athletics. And again, this is something where we're developing a format. We're hoping to bring you some new footage or some new information every 2 to 3 weeks. We'll have different guests. We'll have student athletes. We'll have coaches, maybe some alumni, some Hall of Famers. So it's really an open platform right now. But we hope you enjoyed it today. We hope the sound quality was okay. Again, this is all experimental stuff on our part. But hopefully you enjoyed it, and you'll listen next time. Thanks again.